Hi, we're the Financial Fanatics, and this is our Alibaba presentation. I'm Steven, and here's a picture of the rest of the team, and we're in the 2 p.m. class. So our agenda is first we're going to start out with a little bit of background on Alibaba, then we're going to go into their competition, as well as Jack Ma's objective. Then we're going to take a deep dive into the Taobao villages, as well as the rural Taobao, then talk about our challenge question, the India market, as well as talking about Alibaba's current financials and there are personal recommendations for the company going forward. Executive summary starts out with Jack Ma's sort of vision where he takes small and medium enterprises, MSMEs, to gain global market access. The impactful initiatives involve the Taobao villages of 2020 that created jobs and revenue, as well as the rural Taobao that connected rural China and fostering sustainability through that. The India market, leveraging India's growth and their digital transformations, diversify Alibaba's revenue, as well as a little financial snapshot in regards to the 2023 revenue being 126.49 billion, but that's down from the previous year, as well as Alibaba's challenges, their government regulatory issues, as well as their stock declining and the new competitors. Our recommendations touch on the entry into the social commerce industry, as well as exploring international expansion, especially in the US market. Overall, Alibaba's journey showcases adaptability and resilience. However, their future success will revolve around strategic innovation, navigating challenges, and seizing opportunities.
Thank you, Stephen. I'll now get started by touching on a brief background of the company. So Alibaba was founded by Jack Ma in 1999, whose goal was to facilitate the access of world markets to small businesses that were operating in China. So for most of the business's life, China is where they were mainly competing. Alibaba operated in the business to business or B2B sector of the e-commerce industry, but Ma had bigger plans with the company and knew that they'd be successful in other sectors as well. And the company rapidly grew and expanded from there. So on September 18th of 2014, a little over a decade after expanding, Alibaba launched their IPO at $68 a share. This valued the company at $169.4 billion upon its debut, making it the largest IPO ever. The company, after a sharp drop-off since 2020, now stands at an enterprise value of $124.24 billion and has a market cap of $186.62 billion. So here's just a quick visual of Alibaba's growth evolution from 1999, when the company was founded, all the way up to 2017. So we can note some of the most important years of their expansion as the founding of Taobao in 2003, their IPO of B2B in Hong Kong in 2007, and then, of course, their IPO of the New York Stock Exchange in 2014. So just to touch on their competition in the different sectors they were playing in, once again, Jack Ma's explicit objective was to provide Chinese small businesses an easier access to foreign trade. So from the outset of the company, they played in the B2B sector of e-commerce. Throughout its first few years, Alibaba thrived in this sector, but during this time, eBay was booming in the consumer-to-consumer market, holding an 85% market share, and Ma wanted to expand into that as well. To do this, he launched Taobao in 2003, which created a consumer-to-consumer marketplace, establishing themselves in the C2C sector of e-commerce. And by 2005, eBay's C2C market share in China dropped to 24%, and Taobao went to 70%. So they were really able to dominate just within those first few years. Over time, small businesses also began selling their products on Taobao, resulting in a business-to-consumer or B2C region of the platform. Emerging into the sector led Alibaba to compete with companies like Amazon and JD.com, yet the company still continued to grow while competing with these companies. In 2008, Jack Ma solidified an isolation of the B2C region of Taobao by opening Tmall. The purpose of this expansion was mainly to ensure that more focused support could be provided to small businesses catering to domestic consumers. And of course, as time passed, more companies continued to enter these markets and competition continued to grow. But these were essentially the main companies that Alibaba was forced to compete with as it expanded into these new markets.
Jack Ma's objective, originally all the way back in 1999, was just facilitate global market access for small Chinese businesses. Over 20 years, he did achieve this. Over 10 million out of the 40 million MSMEs gained market access. And in 2016, the new objective of the rural Taobao had this ambitious goal of bringing China's entire rural population into the world of e-commerce. Jack Ma's vision to make it easy to do business anywhere. He had this dream of creating this digital marketplace that was not only profitable, but also inclusive and socially sustainable. Just overall, his objective changed from the small little global market facilitator to this big inclusive rural e-commerce site.
Excellent. And I'll be talking about some of the initiatives Alibaba underwent to achieve this objective. The first one is Taobao villages. Taobao villages are defined as villages in which over 100 families are enlisted in using Taobao. And the annual online sales revenue from that village is over 10 million. In 2016, the count was of Taobao villages was above 1,300, and this has grown significantly to the point where in 2020 the count was up to 5,425 Taobao villages. And you can really see the effect that the Taobao villages has on the economy, with 2.8 direct job opportunities being created per online shopfront on Taobao. And in 2020 alone, just that 1 year, 8.28 million jobs were created through this initiative. Moving on to rural Taobao, this was an initiative connecting rural China through e-commerce with the goals of facilitating convenient and affordable sale of goods to rural areas, as well as supporting sustainable development and growing e-commerce in rural areas of China. This was a private and public partnership between Alibaba and the Chinese government. They worked together, and it resulted in 30,000 locally ran service stations across rural China as of 2018.
Great. So as far as why the Indian market is important, despite the India online market being very small compared to Alibaba's revenues, the potential for growth is enormous. India has one of the youngest and the second largest populations of mobile phone users in the world, which opens an opportunity for the expansion of e-commerce. India's e-commerce penetration is still relatively low compared to more developed markets, which offers Alibaba room for growth, especially in sectors like online retail, digital payments, and cloud computing. Additionally, similar to China, India has a large number of SMEs and is full of cottage industries. The country's rural population exceeds 700 million people living in semi-urban and rural areas, highlighting the large untapped market potential for Alibaba. Next is India's digital infrastructure, which has been rapidly expanding, which increased internet penetration and mobile phone usage. Government initiatives like the Digital India campaign launched by the government in 2015 have also boosted digital literacy and online services, creating an environment for digital businesses to thrive. By entering new markets and industries, Alibaba aims to discover new sources of revenue beyond its traditional e-commerce and retail services. This includes cloud computing, digital media and entertainment, logistics, and fintech solutions. The Indian market, with its rapid digitalization and large undeveloped customer base, offers substantial opportunities in these areas. For Alibaba, expanding into the Indian market aligns with its strategy to diversify its revenue sources and reduce its reliance on the Chinese market, especially with regulatory pressures and slowing domestic growth. The Chinese market, while vast and growing, is also becoming increasingly saturated and competitive. Diversifying geographically allows Alibaba to mitigate risks associated with economic slowdowns, regulatory challenges, and competitive pressures in its home market. In the face of shifting global trade and geopolitical dynamics, diversification allows Alibaba to better navigate uncertainties. By establishing a strong presence in markets like India, Alibaba can offset potential geopolitical risks that might affect its operation or growth prospects in other regions. India's large population of startups and pool of tech talent are attractive to Alibaba for innovation and development. Collaborating with or investing in Indian companies allows Alibaba to take advantage of this talent for technological advancements and service improvements. Alibaba has made strategic investments in Indian startups and companies. For example, Alibaba's investments in Indian companies like Paytm, a leading digital payments platform, and BigBasket, an online grocery delivery service, enable it to participate in the growth of fintech and e-commerce sectors in India. These investments allow Alibaba to come into local expertise in various sectors and popularize the name in India.
So as for Alibaba's present day financials, in 2023, they posted $126 billion of revenue, which was 6% down from 2022 numbers. They incurred negative revenue growth in Q1 of 2023. They did hit an all-time high stock price in 2020. However, that stock price has now declined 75%, putting them 20% below their IPO. Their market cap is 186 billion, which does make them the biggest e-commerce conglomerate in China. However, tighter regulations with the Chinese government and new competition have definitely hindered their growth, along with their struggles continuing in the United States market. In terms of government regulations, the lack thereof early in Alibaba's life cycle really allowed them to enter everyone into the e-commerce space. That has definitely changed early or later in October of 2020. Jack Ma spoke out against the Chinese banking system, calling it a pawn shop system that required physical collateral, which a lot of technology startups don't usually have. The next month, Ant Group, which was a spinoff of Alipay, had their IPO pulled out. It was slated to be one of the biggest IPOs of the decade. In 2021, Alibaba was fined by the Chinese government $2.8 billion for engaging in anti-competitive practices. And again, in January of 2024, for the same reason, and they were forced to pay $141 million to one of their top competitors, JD.com. We've seen this with H&A Group, also a Chinese conglomerate that owned everything from airliners to insurance companies to real estate companies. They also spoke out against the Chinese government and additionally had all their funding pulled, which led to bankruptcy for them in 2021. So as for the new competitors, in the e-commerce space, Temu has made a recent boom in the United States market. Their parent company, Pinduoduo, actually passed Alibaba in terms of market cap early in January. Additionally, Shein has grown 40% and 50% for the past 2 years in revenue. And both these companies share the commonality of really having a big US presence. In terms of social commerce, while it's important to note that Alibaba doesn't necessarily compete in this industry is slated to grow 3 times as fast as traditional e-commerce and is definitely pulling consumers over into this new industry. Tencent, with their product of WeChat in China, has obviously made a serious dent in the Chinese market, as TikTok in the US market and their Chinese counterpart Douyin have also made big strides in this social commerce space, which Alibaba has yet to get into.
Yeah, and that's a great transition into our first recommendation for Alibaba, which is for them to enter that social commerce space. Just to fully define it again, social commerce is e-commerce in which the entire buying and selling process occurs on a social media service. There have been many social commerce platforms launched in the last few years, with the industry being valued at $89.1 billion as of 2022. One of the most successful ones recently has been the TikTok Shop, which was launched in August of last year. And TikTok just recently upped the cut of they take of transactions on that platform, with them seeking $17.5 billion annually in revenue from the US market. One thing Alibaba must focus on if they do decide to enter the social commerce industry is to avoid self-cannibalization of their other current business models. Our second recommendation is for Alibaba to expand internationally. One way they can do this is through partnering with the Chinese government in their One Belt, One Road international investment initiative. This initiative has been the Chinese government investing directly into over 150 countries across the world, but particularly in Eurasia, Africa, and Oceania. And Alibaba hopefully can leverage their pre-existing private-public relationships with the Chinese government into expanding abroad. They can hopefully emulate their rural Taobao initiative in foreign nations to increase overall volume and revenue, and hopefully move away from their issue of overdependence on the Chinese market. And then just to conclude, despite struggling in recent years with stagnant growth as well as regulation issues, Alibaba can grow through expanding into new sectors such as the social commerce industry, as well as expanding internationally to avoid their over-reliance on China.
And this has been our presentation. Thank you so much for watching. Please contact Justin at his email if you have any questions, and there's our works cited. Take care.